I am going to introduce our speaker today, Cecil Cabral, who's going to go over his speech titled Properties of a Good Speaker. Cecil will explain in his point of view how to become a good speaker. Everyone welcome Cecil to give his speech.
To become a good communicator is to follow several steps. One would be to listen. Also is to be a good storyteller, know your limitation, and last is if you have something to say, you have to say it. Mr. Toastmaster, Mr. President, good day. A wise man said that being a good communicator is 90% listening and 10% speaking. Anonymous 45-45. So it's self-explanatory. You're never going to be able to communicate if you keep on talking. So you need to take a deep breath, pause, and then listen. You've probably been in a situation where you were explaining something and the end of your explanation is, what is the question again? You find yourself missing out with the question because you keep on talking. And the second one is you should know how to tell a story. And one of properties of being a good storyteller is to make sure that you keep your audience engaged. And the way to do that is to have them be on a journey with your story. So instead of saying, we went home after dinner, think about your audience. What did they do on the dinner? Where did they go? Towards home? Let's just say you want to explain what did they order, look at the menu, and you guys decided to order a big plate. You could share it. And then you spend the rest of the amount into a dessert. A lava cake that as soon as you taste that lava cake, your pupils dilate. And you remind you of you and your wife's first date. That was 20 years ago. And then you lean over and said, I'm glad that we did this again. And you tell them how you love them. And during that journey, you come across with a little bit of problem with 1604 traffic, wherein they changes all these traffic lights. And then, but when you went home, all this frustration went away because when you open the door, there's your furry cat. And this kitty, if that would talk, they probably will. Why do you have to leave me for those 4 ridiculous hours, but feed me right now? So you need to be able to tell the story. Third one, points that I want to tell you to become a good communicator is you should know your limitation. I, myself, wasn't born here. And knowing that, when I signed up 2 years ago, I didn't expect that to excel. And I will take my time because now we do have a pathway on Toastmaster that we follow. And one thing that I really like about it is that after the icebreaker, you have this speech which will tell you how to get to the point. Now, on the get to the point, I don't have to beat around the bush. I learned that from here. And it helps me how to explain myself, because I work in a hospital, to the doctor. Their time is of the essence as well. They have several patients that need to round, so you need to get to the point. And the last one, which is finally I would like to explain, is if you have something to say, you don't have to wait tomorrow, the next day, or maybe a month. Because in the hospital where I work for, I will treat the ICU as the same as working or touring in Iraq. It's so stressful that when I started working there about 10 years ago, my wife is kept on asking me, why you jerk at night? This is like, a muscle, because your mind still remember about the incident, why this patient died, and that is not where the stress is. The stress is coming from the doctor who thinks that it's your fault, a physician's assistant or PA that thinks that also get the heat from the doctor and blame you because you did something wrong, but you know you did the best you can to save that patient's life. It takes me about 6 months to get acclimated with an ICU settings. But now, I find myself in the same situation, but this is with new nurses who we try to groom them to stay there for the next 5 years. The average time that they should be in the hospital is about 5 years, and somebody leave for going back to school, or somebody probably fed up and do something else. Now, whenever I saw those situations, I pulled this nurse and I told him, wait, if you have something to say, you have to say it. And what you need to do is you need to pull over this person who did the damage and pull them aside in private and tell them the two things. These two things is I learned here from Toastmasters, which is when you evaluate what you do, you say positive and something to work on. At this time, this new nurse is listening to me, and I keep on stressing out that you have to tell this MP or a doctor that you're right. I should have drawn that lab, because whatever this lab will pertains to a patient's condition later on is going to have a heart problem. And also tell them that you're new, that next time it will not happen again. But you have something to work on also. At this time, the new nurse is looking at me like, are you crazy? I don't want to tell a doctor that they need something to work on. But if you set your bar high, then at least you can just go to the middle. So I told them, doctor, you need to tell the doctor that whenever I have this problem, why don't you just pull me aside and not tell this in public where everybody can hear? And then when that time happened, when you told me that what I need to do, maybe you can tell me, hey, thanks, you did a good job. that little bit of comments will be transferred to me. That's a good positive mental attitude. And then I could transfer that to my patient, wherein they also benefited from that positive mental attitude instead of the negativity that you gave me. And that's going to transfer to the patient as well. So those things that you need to address are very important. And I will take note of this. I told these new nurses that I approach you this day and this time. And if you don't follow, you need to read your employee handbook, because next time I'm going to call the administrator. Just FYI. At that time, the new nurse is already feeling at ease. Now they have something, a ground to stand on. And they are not so scared anymore, wherein they look like a prey, wherein all these lioness are smelling the blood. And that's encouragement. So if you have something to say it. For recap, to be a good communicator, you need to listen. You need to know how to tell a story. You also need to know your limitation. And if you have something to say, you need to say it. Mr. Cabral.
Thank you, Cecil.